So in the last couple of videos, we looked at how to set up a simple asset. If I run it, it goes through the code and brings in the data as needed. In this video, we're going to look at the issue of, so let's say I bend this to the side here, and I don't like the way that this deformation looks, so now I want to go in and add a custom deformation. So in here, we have another UI in the Vitala Hub called correctives. I'm going to load in the correctives palette. Now the first thing you'll see is it's blank with two default pose and set default pose. This is not our default pose, so we don't want to set that yet. We'll go back and, well, I can just do that. So I'll set this back to 0, and I'll say set default pose, and it'll set that pose. Now if I rotate this down and I say to default pose, it'll go back to the default. So what I want to do is when this is rotated at 90, I want to correct that pose. So I'll go here and I'll say in correctives. Now I'll right click in the palette, and in here there's new group, new cone, new no reader, and new timeline. Group is for organizing different pose readers. You can parent them under one group and kind of keep them all together that way. A cone reads the joint angle and turns on a pose when the joint angle reaches a certain center of a cone. And then no reader basically has no read into the rig. You have to set that up yourself, but it'll do all the sculpting stuff. And new timeline will read the timeline and go back to a position on the timeline. And it's used more for shot sculpting. So what I have to do if I'm going to create a cone on this guy is I have to select the joint, and then I say new cone. If I have nothing selected, it won't build anything. So I'll go here and I'll look at what was generated. There's basically this curve, and this curve shows you where the center of the cone is. And then in here you have new options like max angle. So the cone right now has a maximum angle of 90 degrees, so it's perpendicular to this arrow. So at 90 degrees, when this is at 90 degrees, it'll turn off, and when it's here, it'll be on. So what I want to do now is I want to define what the shape looks like when it gets into that pose. So I'll go here, select this cylinder, and hit sculpt. And it's asking me if I want to add the arm mesh in, and I do. So now it's going to turn green, and I can go to the right side view and go here and maybe pull this stuff out a little bit. I find Maya 2016 has some nice tools for sculpting, so I'll go and use that. Sculpting, use a bit of the smooth tool, and I'll probably want to make it mirrored. So I'll go to my tool settings, and I will symmetry to object X. I think, yeah, object X is fine. So now I can, oops, I want to make it a little bit smaller, the radius of influence. And then I'll just start sculpting this, and it does a really good job of that, of not collapsing too much. And I'm going to use this wax brush here to kind of pull this stuff out a bit, and then shift to smooth. And the effect right now is a bit too strong, so I can press M to scale that back a bit, and now I can maybe get a better result. So this is what I'd like my shape to look like when I pull this, when this guy rotates to the side. So there we go. Let's go here, smooth this out. I want to build this up, so oops, that's too much. So I need to bring the intensity down, and now I can just pull this out. Alright, so this is my shape when this guy bends to the side. Good, so let's go to correctives, and now that I'm done sculpting it, I hit sculpt again, and it applies that change. Now if I go here and I rotate this back, it will slowly turn off. Now, I don't like what it's doing at 45 degrees, so I want to clean that up. So how would I go about doing that? I would set the control to 45. I would select my joint, so it's gotten selected here. And I'll go to correctives, new cone. And okay, so it's gone in and created an arrow showing the center of the cone there. And this one I'm going to rename to 90 degree elbow, and this one I'll rename to 45 degree elbow. So what I want to do now is set this to 45 degrees in the max angle, because I want it to only turn on. I don't want it to fade off past this being off. So here, when I rotate it 45 degrees, it's off, and when it rotates 45 degrees forward, it's on. So I want this value to reflect that. I don't, when I go here and I set this to 0, and I go to this pose elbow 45, and I set this to 90, which is the default. If I go in here and I look at blend shape arm, oh, I haven't added the shape yet, so let me add that first and then I'll illustrate this. So I'll go here. I don't like this little bump that's happening, so I'm going to hit sculpt and add the arm, and I just want to come here and kind of smooth that out, and maybe add a little bit more of a bump to the back here. Maybe the elbow starts to show up sooner. Maybe pull this out just a bit more. Okay, so I'll hit sculpt, and then that's the change I want to do. So this is at 90 degrees, so if I go here and I look at the blend shape now, it's actually on. It's on. 90 is on at 0.25, and elbow 45 is on. But if I go to the default pose, and I go to the channel box, elbow is still on at 0.25, and that's a problem. Any other sculpts are going to have this little change that it's very minimal, but it's going to have, any other sculpts are going to have that in them. So what I need to do then is go to elbow 45 and set that to a 45 degree angle. So if I go here to this, elbow 45 is on at 1. 90 is still on, but I'll get to that. And if I go to the default pose now, they're both at 0. So I'll go to Vital, the corrective manager, 45. Now, there is a problem here. If I were to export this and bring it back in, these two aren't going to mix together nicely. The 90 is going to cause problems because it's turning on at the same time as the 45. So one way to get around that is to parent the 45 under elbow 90. So if I go here, what will happen then is when I'm importing this back in, it's going to do the 90 first and then the elbow 45. And what that does is the 45 ends up getting a delta of what the 90 is doing. So even though the 90 is turning on during the 45 accounts for it. However, if this was a 90 degree angle on the 45, it would mess up the 90. Like say if I were to rotate this here and the 45 was still on, that would be an issue. Because the 90 isn't compensating for the 45. So anything that's underneath the parent needs to not overlap with the parent. So in this case, by the time it gets to the 90, it's a 45 degree angle. If I look at the blend shape node here, it's off. And that's what I want. But if I go back to the 45 and I check out the blend shape, 90 is on, but that's fine because 45 gets calculated after the 90 because of the hierarchy, and it compensates for whatever the 90 is doing. So if I go to 90 here, I just actually want to make this a little bit more square just because I'm obsessive compulsive. So I'll go here and I'll go to this face and go to component and just pull this out with a bit of fall off, and maybe scale it down. Okay, so that's my new elbow. Now here it's asking me to add a face in. That's not what I want to do. So if I cancel out and then hit sculpt again, it'll do it properly. You can't actually add faces in, so it's just an error. Okay, so now when I get to 45, it's hitting my 45 shape, so 45 is on. And actually now when I hit sculpt here, it goes and calculates the 45 again. So I'm always getting the 45 exactly as it is. So if I go here now I might decide that I want the 90 to turn off a little bit faster. So I'll go to the 90 and maybe just give it a 70-degree angle. And then when I come here, it turns into the 45 a bit faster. I can also go in here and select the control curve for this. So if I go here, this is the curve for pose joint elbow 90. And what I might want to do is just like have it turn off a bit faster and flatten that so it's more of a pointy curve. And so then when I come here, it just turns off a lot faster. That might be a little bit too much, so I'll come here and maybe just push this up a bit more. And that's pretty good. Okay, so I'll just hit sculpt again to make sure that everything's overlapping properly. And it looks good. Okay, so now because my rig is rebuilding, these edits that I make, I want to be able to rebuild or reapply them as well to the rig. So what I need to do is I need to export it, and there's basically this pose data type right here that I can use to export and import pose information. So the first thing I want to do is save a whip of the stuff I've done so that I don't lose it. It's saved a version. I should probably call it like pose deformation, and then it'll show up here, pose deformation. So what I'll do now is I'll add a new pose. This is my pose data, and I'm going to hit export, and it's going to go through and export those two different poses. If I double click on here and show you the what it looks like, pose, there's pose group and pose joint elbow 90. In this 90 file, you'll also find the 45 because it's a 90 is the parent of 45 and they export together. So what I need to do now is basically when the rig is building, bring in that pose. So I'll go here, new data import, and I'll add pose. So here's my pose data, and this will come in at the very, well, yeah, it'll come in at the very end. And I'll just make sure I save it just to be 100% certain I'm not losing anything, and I'll hit process. Okay, so it's brought in those two poses. If I go here and I build this, you can see the poses coming on. So what I want to show here is if I turn off import pose and build it, it's going to come here and not have any poses on it. And if I just right click run this last process, it will then have the poses. I'm not 100% happy with how that's looking. It's just a quick test, but you get the idea. And if I go here into Vitala and correctives, I can go and refresh this, and my poses will come back in and I can begin editing them again. And then after I'm done editing them, I just come back to the data save a WIP and export the pose, and it'll all rebuild. So that's a quick introduction into an introductory asset. It's a very simple asset, not much is going on. Once I get the template ready for the body, I'll do a demo of that. And thanks for watching.